Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. And on today's episode, put some respect on Steve Garcia's name. Another win, another finish. Speaking of the word another heavyweight fight, another eye poke. And speaking of another, Dodgers, baby, another World Series win. Oh, that's right. It's an MMA show. Sorry, guys. Hello, everyone. I'm Gorgeous George. I'm on the con today, and look at the distinguished panel we brought to you for today. Goes from MMA Junkie Radio here in Las Vegas. Danny Segura down in the 305. Sofla, one of the top reporters in the game. Dan Tom, also in Sin City. He is our fight analyst. He's forgotten more than we know. Like and subscribe, please. It helps out, especially right now. If you can hit the like button, it'll be tremendous. Cold coffee's on the ones and twos. We need to get started here. Steve Garcia, guys, he blasted David Onama on Saturday night, and in my opinion, I think we have ourselves a title contender. Or do we? Panel, you feeling this Garcia guy as a title contender? We know he's an exciting featherweight. He's got some nice streaks going with the wins, with the finishes. Well, actually, that one went away with the last fight, but you know what I mean. He had one. Dan Tom, it's been a while since we've seen you. Glad to have you. Let's have you kick things off. Give me a reaction to Garcia versus Onama.
Didn't somebody from this beautiful team of ours smartly pick Steve Garcia as the 2024 MMA Junkie underrated fighter of the year? Boy, that kind of aged well, whoever picked that, huh? Anyway, so I don't know who that is, guys. You can look that up. But I've been singing the praises of Steve Garcia over here myself. Even though, he never jumped off the page to begin with, but he's went on this kind of quiet streak these last couple of years that's been undeniable at featherweight. And, say what you will about the name value. I'm happy to get a break from the middleweights that McMaynard is always trying to shove down our throats, even though he tried to do so again, thankfully, on the undercard. I'm happy just to get some lighter weight, the technical, the really good representative of our sport divisions. Yeah, why not we spotlight those more, UFC, huh? Not we get action. We don't get big heavyweight meat slapping slog fests. What a world. What a world, guys.
Dan, when you saw Garcia perform, immediately did you think this guy might have something for the champ in 18 months, in 2 years? Is he tagging boxes, that you, I guess, watch as they progress, throughout? Do you like his skill set overall, his demeanor? Can he be a champ?
That's a hard question. I don't even know if I put that question when I do my prospects list, which I would argue you would, maybe want some more championship potential from the ground up. Whereas a guy like Steve Garcia, I've been behind him and all that, but it's like one of those things where I'm not saying that he can't, by the way, but I'm also not out here saying that he's going to be the next title challenger. I think a great parallel, guys, for him would be he's going to be like the Drew Dober of the division. I mean, he's already setting knockdown and knockout records. He's got 8 knockdowns in his last 7 fights, right? That's a pretty crazy stat, especially because he went to decision with Cater even as well in one of those, fights. So that's a really, really crazy stat. So I see him as being that dependable action fighter for the division. He's probably going to end his career with a lot of those knockout records for featherweight. And maybe, even other weight classes as well. He almost had the all-time knockout streak record. He almost took that from Chuck Liddell his last time out. So, yeah, I think he's going to be a good action fighter.
All right, let's get a reaction from Danny Segura, man. What did you see on Saturday night, aside from a win, a clear, decisive win? What do you see championship material too? Or am I getting ahead of my skis?
I'm still hesitant to say he is championship material. I do think that he is top contender material. This guy's going to crack the top 5 and potentially fight for a belt at some point, maybe. I don't think that's too crazy to say, but I've yet to see enough for me to say yeah, this guy's a future champion. I think there are a few things that we need to see from him, especially against higher level opposition. David Onama, don't get me wrong, a great guy to beat. He's definitely a top guy in the weight class, but he's not, an elite fighter, or at least not yet. So yeah, all around impressive stuff. I think his, the first round finish was great. This keeps his name up. First main event. I think he handled everything almost perfect. I think he kind of dropped the ball there on his post-fight callouts, but I think that's probably a topic for a little later. But yeah, all in all, impressive stuff from Steve Garcia.
Danny, that's a hard left hand, man, and he's hunting and he's accurate, and his defense, his head movement. I don't know. I we might have to revisit this one this spinning back click. Maybe you guys will hand me receipts. I don't know. I'm really pumped up. Goes, how about you?
Look, I think when a lot of people go back and watch the fight, or if they just hear about the results, of course they're going to point to Steve Garcia's power, right? I mean, let's be honest. When you talk about a Garcia, who doesn't mention power, right? That's one of his biggest assets. But George mentioned it. The head movement is what's going to get lost in the shuffle. I think that's what won him this fight. His footwork, his head movement. A lot of boxers, they'll have head movement, and it transfers over to MMA. But a lot of them get kind of lazy with it. And he had different movements, different combinations that I think kind of had Onama backpedaling a lot, trying to figure out where is this guy going to actually be when I can throw a strike. And by then he had already eaten a couple, and he was very, very good at that. So I think this guy, he's got some tools. I'm with the other two guys on the panel, with Dan and Danny. I don't know that we could say championship material, but here's the other thing that we have to realize is the top of this division has always been pretty well-rounded fighters, right? And I don't know that we could say Garcia's at that point right now, but those guys are eventually going to go away, and the new top of that echelon of the division is going to be different. And maybe he could be champion when that happens, but right now, I'd probably say he's still got a little bit of work to do, but he is definitely laying down all the bricks, the foundation for it.
I don't know, guys. I don't want to harp on it. You guys are the stars of the show, man. But that excitement we have for Jean Silva and Diego Lopez, I just feel like he's got that ingredient, Now, good point at the end. We still have to see the well-rounded game. How's he going to deal with a Sterling or an Evloev or whoever? What's it going to be like if he's down 10-9 going in, because he's handling his business aside from the Cater fight. But, with Calvin Cater, he's obviously at the tail end of his career. But man, I'm just pumped up about, like I say, this guy and what he brings. I'm anxious to see if Chepe Mariscal might be another one that keeps, following along and pushing into the top 10 or whatever. But
George,
I like what I saw so far.
Let me push back a little bit. Like, there are some fighters where eventually they're just so good at making you fight their game that you never even have the answer to that. Like, really, how many times have we seen John Jones on his back? What would he be like on his back? Like, he went his whole career being so dominant that it never even really needed to get there. This guy makes other guys fight his game. And if he can figure out ways to continue to do that, it may not even matter how well-rounded he is, right? But let's be honest, the guys up at the top, they're pretty strong. They're pretty good fighters.
Onama looked terrible, but I think it had to do with this guy. Like, he just looked like he didn't belong there. Like, who booked this guy to be in the main event? But I think it's because, like I say, Garcia's he just executes really, really well. And this was brought up by the commentators. I've seen all of his fights, but I hadn't seen just how really, really good his head movement is until they started pointing it out throughout the fight. I've always just been, I mean, his fights happen so fast, to tell you the truth, most of the time. But I like what I'm seeing out of this guy. Lerone Murphy, no one got behind that dude until, he threw that back elbow. And I think this guy's just progressing a lot faster.
I like that take right there from Alex 9999. He does move like an old school boxer. I mean, he walks you down with no respect. And, that's working for him right now. We'll see.
That was really good analysis. Sorry, go ahead.
I saw a comment from Manabri that says he's a BMF. And going back to what Danny said, maybe he is and maybe he isn't. I think anyone that grows up in Albuquerque has a claim to it, honestly. Those are some nasty streets. But he hasn't really given us that vibe, although he does carry a chip on his shoulder. Go ahead, Dan. What were we going to say?
Oh, I like the John Silva mention that you mentioned, George. A lot of people were mentioning that, but not a lot of people mentioned the other name you mentioned, George, which I like, which was Chepe Mariscal. And a lot of people don't realize they actually fought. Steve Garcia has a TKO win over him, but if you go back and watch the fight, it was a very controversial stoppage. It was a really good fight too, and I do think Steve Garcia was definitely getting the better, but it was a very controversial standing stoppage for what it's worth. And you guys know I'm not a rematch fan, but that's a rematch I would shut my mouth and open my eyes for. You know what I'm saying? That's a good one.
Garcia's been around since like 2013. I think he fought the baddest man on the planet, Joe Warren.
Yep. Oh yeah.
The Bob Marley guy. What's it called? The Bob Ross guy.
Bob Ross. Yeah.
I think he lost to that dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't believe it. I think that's why he's carrying this chip, because he's like, I'm not 4 years in the game, not what you guys have seen of the streak. I'm 12 years in the game, but he was probably buried behind Cowboy and Jones and Holly, over there. And you can tell, now he's kind of like one of the top dogs in that gym. I thought he fumbled the call out too. Holloway's pretty clear about, I ain't even going back to 45. So let's forget about the BMF, but I'm not even going back to 45. But yeah, I think Steve Garcia, like I say, he's got some real gangsters at 45 that he can have a nice fight with in his next one. But I'm all in on this guy. I think he can compete for a title down the road. What is next then for this guy, in your opinion, Danny? Who would you match him up against? He's not going to get Holloway. He's not going to get a BMF match, and he's not going to get a lightweight. So let's stick to featherweight.
I would like for him to fight maybe Zalal. I think it would make sense. John Silva, like those are big names that are not right in the top 5, but just outside of it. And I feel like that's what he's trying to prove, right? That he can sort of linger outside of that and then eventually get one of the big dogs. So I like that, and that's why I was kind of hating on him a little bit, because he did the hardest part, which was get a first round knockout. And then on the mic, he kind of, I think, dropped the ball there by calling out Max Holloway, who's now a lightweight, a weight class, out of him. This is his first UFC main event and an Apex show. And I'm not trying to put that down. A lot of fighters dream of that, and 90% of them don't even get to do that. But still, like, that's just a different step, a completely different level in terms of popularity and hype. And we know that Max is a pay-per-view headliner. And then he calls out Josh Emmett, who's coming off a loss and who hasn't really been doing all that great. Why don't you call it the guy that beat him, Yusuf Salal? So yeah,
and it's the same camp,
and they're the same camp. Yeah, he could have been like, "Oh, I beat your boy." Now,
right.
So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe again, he is a badass, but maybe he needs a little bit of instructing in terms of like his post-fight call-outs and all that stuff. But all in all, yeah, like I think he needs to get he's past those. I would more or less put Josh Emmett at this point kind of the caliber of a David Onama, and I think he's proven he's past that. So get a John Silva, get a Yusuf Salal, get these guys that have are in a better career spot right now and more in their prime.
You like those names for Mean Machine guys?
If you look at it, a guy like Josh Emmett, I think you can he's already headlined, right? Like an Apex card. He could probably do that with Josh Emmett. But if you take a guy like Zalal, a guy like Jean Silva, that needs to be on a pay-per-view. I'm not saying it's headlining a pay-per-view, but it needs to be on that main card. So
Opening
I think,
bout?
What's that?
Opening bout?
Something like that,
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. But I think he's kind of deserved that. So I think it depends on which way he wants to go, which way the UFC wants to promote him. But I think he's earned a lot, that being a headliner in this card and getting it done the way he did, I think he can do some stuff.
Damn, look at Aubrey Travis in the chat saying Josh Emmett knocks out Steve Garcia. You agree with that, Dan?
He could do it. I've been an Emmett truther for his punch power, but boy, the odds would definitely not be in his favor.
Dan, this guy covers a lot of ground with that left. He has nice reach, but he also just knows how to use his length. And like I say, he's not built like a tank, but man, he's got some pop in that left hand. Kind of reminds me of El Mudo Jesus Pinedo.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, that's actually, they're very similar.
Nice. I was just gonna go with a more obvious De La Hoya reference, as far as like he doesn't have the they used to call it De La Hoya arms. You don't have you don't got the big arms, but you clearly knows how to punch, right? Like I believe like you could throw that kind of stereotype on him for that. And great analysis by you guys with the boxing as well, because that head movement and his lead hand, both those things weren't always there in Steve Garcia's game. He's only recently added those, and they made a big difference. So great call for those Garcia boys, and great interview with the Garcias, by the way. Steve Garcia, a lot of positive comments in the YouTube section on the interview you guys did. They were really feeling the Garcia synergy. So I just wanted to give you guys a shout out for that interview, which is always on my pregame studies, folks. So check out those interviews.
Thank you, Dan.
He was a real likable guy.
Yeah, I want to stick with Dan here for a second. Dan, what do you think would make sense? Do we test him now and say, here's Sterling, Evloev, right? Let's see if you can handle more of a grappling base, or do you think the UFC just goes, nah, man, this guy is, all glitz and glamour. He's going for the KO. Let's match him up with a Silva or a Lopez or someone like that that wants to throw down, what would you do personally at this point?
I think that's the easy choice. One, because it's what the UFC wants, it's what the fandoms wants. It's the sexy choice, right? Keep them in strikers, delights, action fights. But let's be honest, we look at the top ranked featherweights in that division. That's kind of all there is to choose from. Like, yeah, there's guys like Aljo, but I don't think he'll get Aljo because let's be honest, they don't like matchmaking Aljo favorably. So they're probably going to give someone that they think can beat Aljo and stop his hype. And then Ortega was a name that was bandied around, but I think we should put him in the same, if not glass case box categories, Max Holloway, where it's not only is this guy not a featherweight anymore, like he shouldn't be a featherweight, right? Like he can't make the weight. He doesn't look great. He's taking all this damage. Like I hate even people interjecting Ortega's name in here. So let's throw him out of there. And, all that's left is really Movsar Evloev, right? And again, maybe the UFC, you could accuse them of doing the same thing with Aljo, where they don't necessarily want him running straight to the top. So they're not, they're totally okay with like not booking or booking them in, troubling matchups. And I don't see them throwing Steve Garcia at any of those. I think they're going to utilize Steve for the action fights. It makes too much sense. Not even the UFC could mess this one up.
All right, let's move on, guys. Waldo Cortez Acosta defeated Ante Delia right after Ante Delia had just beaten him. No, I'm just kidding. So the way it played out was Ante Delia, many people thought, 99% of the world thought, had finished Waldo Cortez Acosta because obviously he was pounding him with strikes. And then there was this intervention from the referee, not a stoppage, an intervention from Mark Smith because of a delayed reaction maybe to the eye poke, which he claimed he didn't see. I don't know if he got feedback from the other ref or he just maybe wanted to cover his ass. Who knows? He gets in there. He intervenes in between the fight. I'm still not saying stopping right now. We all think it's come to a halt. So does Delia, who's already celebrating on the other side. But now they start tending to Waldo's eye because of the eye poke. By then we start getting the replays where we all start saying, oh, he did get poked, right? They start bringing him in. Mark Ratner, the commentators now kind of pick up a new narrative of what's actually happening and not the stoppage. And credit to Brendan Fitzgerald, who kept pointing out he didn't wave his arms. All right. So again, when Mark Smith jumps in, he didn't wave his arms because of the stoppage, but that's a movement that's done so fast that when we just see the referee in there, we think the fight's over. So I'm not faulting anyone who thought that. Guys, take over from here. Danny, what do you think of this, man? It's so frustrating that these eye pokes are becoming a lot more common, especially 1 week after that huge title fight out in Abu Dhabi. Your thoughts on this fight and how it all went down?
Yeah, if we had an award, and we should probably make one. I think this is actually a good idea, and I'm pitching it live here, so we'll see what our editor says. But if we choose like the most batshit crazy moment of 2025, like MMA Junkie's most batshit crazy moment of 2025, this would be it. Like, just like, I wonder for the people that, like, as soon as there's a finish, okay, there's a finish and people walk away and go to the bathroom or whatever. I'm sure there's had to be like a certain amount of people that like watched that, came back, and then all of a sudden they're seeing Waldo getting their hand raised and Ante on the floor knocked out. And they're like, wait, what the hell just happened? Am I going crazy? Am I seeing things? But yeah, what a weird sequence. I do think ultimately the right call was made, but yeah, I think it should have been a no contest because Ante clearly poked him in the eye, and then Waldo took like 10 shots, like massive haymakers, and he's just covering. And I felt like even those shots are probably a bigger disadvantage than the eye poke itself. So I'm like, look, at this point, just call it a no contest. Ante definitely didn't win. He got those shots because of the eye poke. But then you got Salsa Boy out here saying, no, wait a minute, I'm good to go, when he could barely open his eye, and he goes and knocks out Ante. So it's one of those things where you kind of, as this sport evolves, everybody always kind of wants more, I guess, the fighters to be a little bit more civilized, more protocols, more things to be done right, etc. Everything by the book, which I get and I'm for. But man, that was badass. That was savage. And you can't look at that and just be like, wow, just in awe about the toughness and the balls to gamble on himself of Waldo Cortez Acosta. So, yeah, completely impressed by him. That was awesome. That was badass. I gotta say.
All right, Goes. How about you, man?
just such a confusing situation for all this. This sport has no chill whatsoever. The eye poke was bad. I think we can all agree on that. Mark Smith didn't see it. So that whole situation with letting him land all those bombs afterwards, then I get where Diaz coming from. But at the same time, I'm kind of with Danny. It's just not the same fight anymore. Once all that's gone down, you don't have the same fight that you had before. I hope they do run it back. It would probably be a trilogy at this point, seeing as they both won. But
You
yeah,
can't run that back, Goes.
I think you got to run it back, man. It's just it was confusing. It was the weirdest situation of all time. I would just say, just do it again, man, because neither guy's really in a position where you're saying, you know, I'm potentially going to be next or anything like that. It was handled poorly. It really was. I think they could have probably done a better job of telling Delia's corner what was actually going on. And with Waldo, yeah, I mean, dude, hats off to him for even trying to attempt to come back. You know, we talked about what happened in the Tom Aspinall fight, and I don't want to compare that because they're not all created equally. You know, every eye poke, every nut shot, they're all different, right? So he did gamble, and I think it paid off for his checkbook. But we got to figure it out because to me, I think that was just a really, really odd situation.
I wish that when Dan gives his take, we could play some Benny Hill music because he's gonna make it funny. Not because I don't like Dan's takes. I love Dan's takes, but oh man, like a lot went on, right, Dan? I mean, you go in sportsbooks like us. You worked in a sportsbook like us. It's so true what Danny was saying. You know, you could be drinking a beer, holding a piss. It's almost over. Oh, it's over. Delia won. You put your beer. You run to the bathroom. And when you come back, Leo's on his back. You're like, what the fuck? I was about to cash my ticket. What just happened?
Yeah, I was on the phone with a buddy talking about the fight, and like we're like, wait, it's still going, it's still going. But guys, I gotta come in. I gotta disagree with both you guys. I think you guys are both focusing on the wrong thing, and not to be a effing wrist slapper. Who am I, authority? But I think it's a disservice that if we're not talking about the right thing, guys. Here, I'm going to have to counter the Waldo bias with my anti-Waldo bias, Danny, so forgive me because he's my least favorite heavyweight. But even putting that aside, I didn't have any bets on the side or any of that real bias there. This was a crap ending, man. And it was crappy. It was even crappy for Waldo Cortez Acosta because he was forced to go in there injured, guys. Like, are we ignoring that what? Oh, it's okay. Instead of one compromised fighter, now we have two compromised fighter. We got a TBI and a serious eye injury, which people again don't respect enough. And Waldo being unfortunate, because we should both feel bad for Waldo because he, regardless of if he won and we think it's badass or not, like he was forced to go in there injured and compromised against protocol. Huge no. Why we're not even focusing on that or Mark Smith, especially when guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I know we had somebody that picked the under radar, the fighter of the year. Didn't we also have somebody who regularly refers to Dan Mergliotta as indecisive Dan and Mark Smith is manic Mark Smith? And isn't it maybe that person who said that gets proven literally every week? And we can't even focus on that. We're going to focus on giving Salsa Boy of all people credit, who again, we should feel bad for because he went in there for injured, right? And then if we are trying to feel, good for him because of this gift that he got, because let's be honest, as much as he shouldn't have been put in that position, it was also a gift. Two things can be true, people. This is something that everybody needs to realize because everybody's just blue team, red team, my team, your team. Like, God, two things can be true in the world. It's okay. Trust me. And it's complete. It was complete bullshit. And what does he do with that gift again in there? He uses it to muddy even more the eye poke scenarios by being like, oh, see, I can do it. And now all of the bros and all the idiots, the mouthpiece, like, hey, Salsa Boy's tough. He's awesome. What up? If he can do it, Tom can. And it's dumb. It's dumb. It completely fuels this blaming and putting the onus on foul fighters, which is also part of the ref's responsibility, folks. Something that is a clear trend that happens every week. We need to be talking about it and calling it out. And yes, back to what I just said, partial in that equation was the reffing. And the reffing was huge in this equation. And again, it's by a guy who I nicknamed Manic Mark Smith because he's always like, And yeah, maybe he didn't yell. He didn't wave his hands. But what's incriminating is the fact that he didn't see the foul. How do we know he didn't see the foul? Because like George says, in the replay, he doesn't even stop it. So how can you call something you didn't stop, which we all hate? We all hate when refs call, even if it did happen. We're like, that's still bullshit. Like we saw it, but the ref didn't see that. You're just taking the fighter's word for it. That could have not have been a foul, right? So that's wrong. And I don't want to keep going on. There's like a whole laundry list of stuff that was wrong with this fight and this protocol and Mark Smith's mishandling of it. And again, and my last point, I'll move. And part of the reason why people are like, oh, well, he yelled stop pretty viciously. And this actually could be a defense of Mark Smith in the situation, but it also touches on something that I've said a billion times before, because I'm not just making a cool nickname to make fun of Mark Smith, who served our country. And it seems like a really nice guy, by the way. But it's because he literally, whether it's like an end of a round, guys, a clear stoppage or a not so clear stoppage, any of the spectrum, Mark Smith stops it the same way. And how does he do that? He screams like his little sister is being stabbed in front of him every time. Stop, stop, stop. Like he literally does that. You stop, stop. And like, you'll see the fighters like in the middle of round, sometimes they'll kind of like react to him like, whoa, what the fuck, bro? Calm down. Like they'll react to him more than the fighter because he's so freaking, again, I'm not being a jerk. I call him Manic Mark Smith for a reason. I call him Indecisive Dan for a reason. Can I get some credit here, guys, after being proven right week after week with these guys?
Man, you notice a lot of things I don't notice, but I'll be spotting it. I'll be spotting that for sure.
Trust me. Trust me.
I'm curious though, why did Mark intervene late? Did the other ref tell him eye poke, or because he's there, and then he lets him take a bunch of shots, and then he stops the fight, right? To, I guess, address the eye poke he didn't see. So what talked him into it, I guess, because by then Salsa Boy's kind of covered up and he's just taking shots, and all this is happening so fast, man. Did Mark Smith, what do you think? What alerted him to it?
I'll say no, because that's really hard to hear even in the Apex, right?
Yeah.
And not that it can't be done, right? Not that they're official, but B, if that were the case, the commission would have someone would have bandied that out. They would have bandied that out, that information, and made sure it got out, because as we know, the athletic commissions, one thing they do is cover their own people. They don't protect the fighters like they're supposed to, guys, right? But they will. Remember the other, everyone's focusing on Dan and Mark like I just did, right? But even Gary Copeland in that New Jersey card, that last New Jersey card, remember he had a couple of those, or even with the Weidman Silva, that really awful handling where it was like an eye poke TKO, and they changed it to a technical decision. So again, didn't protect the fighter at all. It didn't protect Bruno Silva. What it did was it protected Gary Copeland's incompetence. So yeah, whether it's from the back of the house, post, or during, they will cover each other's butts. So if that was the case, that would have been made aware to at least the broadcast or somebody to pass on. I know they don't do official scrums or anything like that, like we wish they would. But yeah, I'm gonna gun to my head, bullshit.
Diaz protested the loss. Danny, does he have a case?
No, I mean, it's
the whole like, hey, I thought I won. I came down. I wasn't prepared to fight. I mean, Waldo's like to be pitched.
First thing he did,
and I took a bunch of shots, so I was even more compromised when the fight restarted. But without having ever been in there, I don't know what this adrenaline dump, what state it takes you to, from 100% jacked, I'm ready to fuck up anybody, to somebody give me a cigarette.
and I get that, but the first thing he said about that statement was, again, put into question the eye poke. Wasn't he just defending his boy and his teammate Tom Aspinall all week, saying that the fight shouldn't continue, that Tom and Aspinall did the same thing, that there needs to be harsher punishment for fighters that do eye poke, this and that, and all of a sudden you're kind of doing a 180 because you're on the other side of it? I don't know. I didn't really like his response to it. I think the person who was wrong here was Waldo. He was the one that got badly eye poked. He was the one that took 10 unanswered shots, that basically were freebies. So if you get me to pick, who would you rather be in this scenario, Ante or Waldo, in resuming a fight, having an impaired vision and taking a bunch of shots? Man, I'd rather be Ante all day. That's not to say that Ante didn't get some negative effects for it. Again, and this is why I love having Dan on, because Dan has very different opinions than I do, and it's interesting hearing his thoughts on things. I think our framework is the same. Our spirit, though, is different in terms of how we feel about this whole thing. I think it should have been a no contest. But if Waldo wanted to continue and wanted to take the gamble, because he's in a position to gamble more than Tom Aspinall, again, this is nothing against Tom Aspinall, then he took it. I'm not saying that should have been right, but sometimes in this sport where it's insane, it's crazy, you got to leave a little room for a little bit of madness, right? This is a crazy sport. at the end of the day. But no, Ante, if he restarted a fight against a fighter that he legally eye poked, got no point taken away, and took like 5 or 6 shots at Waldo. Just the 5 or 6 shots should have been a point away. And it's not because, hey, you did something dirty. Hey, I poked him. Let me get some shots off. No, the point deduction is there to even the playing field. And it was clear that Waldo entered or resumed that fight at a disadvantage, and the playing field wasn't evened out. So the playing field wasn't even out. So no, I mean, I think there's very little for Ante to stand on. Again, Waldo Costa wins by finish, moves on, in my opinion.
This is interesting stuff. Goes, I'll give you the final word, but let me just read off what Ante said. He says, I'm not sure if I hit him in the eye. I think it's near the eye. And of course, I want a video where you can see that stab. Brother.
It was clear.
It couldn't have been more clear. Okay. Then he says, the referee did not show timeout, but stopped the fight and therefore declared me the winner. That decision cannot be changed later. Well, the technicality is that he didn't waive it, but he did stop it. Okay. Then he says, the opponent sat and relaxed while watching the footage. I don't know if he relaxed. He was trying to clear out his eye.
Dude, his eye was messed up.
He says, replay used the interruption, which the rules do not allow. Replay is allowed, to determine whether it's going to be a no contest, whether it's going to be intentional or unintentional. He could have been more wrong on his bullet points here. Then he says, after all, the fight continued irregularly. Well, maybe, yeah, because of that one stoppage. I'll give him that one. I asked for nothing more, just honesty. I don't run from defeat. I respect every opponent and every outcome. But when the rules are broken and I'm robbed, not this way. The sport hasn't seen this yet. Goes, any final thoughts after hearing from your colleagues and just hearing from what Ante said here?
Yeah, I'll give him some of that statement, but most of it didn't make too much sense. I will say this, though, in a fight, and especially in that one where there were so many strikes thrown in such a small period of time, I'm not a guy that says D'Elia knew he eye poked him. There's a lot going on. He may not have known. But if you go back and you watch it, there's nobody that can deny that. I don't know what he's talking about. It's clear as day right there. Like, he did do it. But in the fight, I don't know that he knew he did that.
Yeah, I don't think that he's got much room to stand on. I agree with Danny there. I just think it's unfortunate, right? Like, as a guy who has really ironic luck where I feel like I'm constantly in a Meet the Parents movie, like, this is some shit that would happen to me. God forbid I was a professional fighter. I'd be like, everyone who eye pokes is an asshole. And then my next fight, I'd be like, I eye poked the guy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if that's too fair, and even though I also disagree with some of the things he said, I will push back though, guys. He was correct on the replay because it is legal. But it's not legal to restart the fight after. Replay only can come into effect in certain states like Nevada, post after the action's called to clarify a call, but it does not grant you a gateway to restart the fight. So the protocol was all wrong. Back to what Danny said about our framework being correct, and I think that's the thing to focus on here is the framework. And again, I will argue more so instead of Waldo good or bad or Elijah good or bad, I think that's really dumb, low-level fan conjecture that we're usually having the battle. So let's not add to that, guys, and let's focus on the fact that the protocol was awful. And regardless of who or how should have acted, no one should have even had a chance. And if we want to commend Waldo, like Danny was saying, like that, I get that, by the way, too. But again, the ref also robbed Waldo of properly allowing himself back in the fight without a leveling of the playing field as well. Again, it was wrong on all sides here, and it was due to Mark Smith, and the referee protocol really fumbled the bag. And that's what we need to focus on. And gosh forbid, maybe hold these guys accountable for.
Well, I'm glad we tackled the controversial fight. Oh, wait, we haven't yet. Del Valle and Dulgarian. Oh, boy. Well, what happened in the fight was Del Valle got a submission first round of Dulgarian, but the controversy came afterwards because of the allegations that there might have been some funny business, some shady business in this fight. There was a line movement where Dulgarian went from a favorite of, don't hold me to this exact number, but somewhere in the 250 to 270 range, and it went down about 100 points, which means the bets were starting to come in from the other side. And what muddies the water a little bit is Dulgarian having, I guess, a past with a camp that had, issues a few years ago. He's now, I believe, in Colorado. At least that's what he told Goz and I when we interviewed him not too long ago. And here he's getting tapped out. Thank you again to Cold Coffee for the excellent B-roll as I'm talking. There you see him getting tapped out by Del Valle in the first round. He got admonished by Michael Chiesa because he didn't even like the way this was being defended. And of course, that together with the line movement, there's a controversy in this fight. You know, this is a tough one, guys, because again, these are allegations and this is serious stuff, but that's what we're here to do. What are your thoughts first?
I think if we're going to point this out, if we're going to say this happened, you pretty much have to be 100% sure, right? These types of allegations are very strong. There's very big penalties with that. In boxing, they have a terrible reputation for things like this. In mixed martial arts, we're starting to get something, right? Like for the longest time, it was something that you didn't really have to worry about. Now things are starting to come out, back in the Pride days as well, right? So this is definitely something that we don't want attached to our sport. In watching it, I need 100% proof, but my gut feeling, one thing that stands out is when you see these companies get involved and start to pull things and issue refunds, they don't just do that for anything. It really takes a lot for them to go and do something like that. That is not a good sign. You know, as time goes by, we might get a more definitive answer on this, but I'll tell you this much, that's not a very good start at all. And if you watch the fight, yeah, you can criticize a lot the defense on that choke. But I will say this, because of things like Dana White's Contender Series, and we're rushing a lot of fighters that are very inexperienced at a high level. This guy, I think, might have like 9 fights total or something like that, right? We weren't really getting that back in the day when they would have to cut their teeth in LFA and all these other organizations. He could have just been really bad too, right? I mean, that's so hard to prove. That's the problem. But gun to the head, this is not looking good.
And Goes ain't lying, man. Boxing's had a history of this. Just ask Quick and Sugar Ray about what they did with Jack Jenkins back in the day. All right, Danny, let's hear from you. What are your thoughts on these allegations? When you saw the fight, did that thought cross your mind?
No, not really. And I saw some tweets come in that the line had moved, and I was thinking, hey, you know, probably people checking out the spinning Back Clique episode of Monday, or a clip resurfaced, because I told you guys at that time Del Valle, he was at a plus 190 on some books, and I'm like, that's a steal. He should be the favorite, and I haven't been sold, to be honest, on Dulgarian, and I think Del Valle is the truth. I think that guy is nasty. I've interviewed him. He's a very, very good fighter. And you know, he wins his fights mostly by, you know, knockout or submission, and a lot of them come by rear naked choke. His last one against Connor Matthews being by rear naked choke. So I thought this was totally a possible scenario. The defense, I did think that Dulgarian was going to put up a little bit more of a fight. And I do want to compare it to, for example, the Dumas fight, where, you know, he's getting subbed and he kind of just has his arm there and he's kind of just waiting to tap. And I think even DC pointed it out on the broadcast. That happens all the time. Like when a fighter gets caught in something they know they can't get out, they kind of just let their hand linger for a second and they just try to hold on, or they try to punch or something. So, you know, there's that. But I can also see the other side of if someone suspects there's something. Obviously, the line moving that much, it is very, very suspect. And then, you know, this is somebody that used to train with James Krause, which obviously has that past as well. So I'm all for obviously investigating that, and there looks to be an issue there. We'll see what stems out of it, but certainly a lot of sketchy stuff. But if I didn't read that tweet and I would have just watched the fight, I more or less thought this was going to be the end result. I think Del Valle was probably going to take a finish here by submission. I just expected it to come a little later. So I'm not too surprised on the result. I was surprised again that Del Valle was an underdog. But the line thing moving around, yeah, it is kind of weird. And it kind of sucks, to be honest, for Del Valle, because as I'm saying here, I did think that was going to be ultimately the end result. I think he was going to win this fight. So it sucks that people now see it like, you know, Dulgarian threw the fight, and we don't know. Maybe that's the case, but yeah, there's definitely not much credit been given to Del Valle here.
Dan at the Brian John in the chat is saying, do I think he was legitimately trying to defend that choke? Nope. And a few people have been saying almost like it was non-existent. There in the B-roll, we can see he was peeling, right? The backward punches is where Chiesa was saying, those don't do nothing. Stop doing those. He didn't like those at all. Dan, what were your thoughts on some of these comments, what Chiesa said, and of course the fight itself?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were messaging me, asking me if I thought it was a fix, and obviously we're going to wait for all the information to come out, folks. This is alleged, or entertainment, whatever you want to say. If there's a gun in my head, though, I'll tell you guys what I told those same people, and I said, yeah, if there's a gun in my head, I have to say yes or no. I'm going to say yes, right? If we're talking entertainment, alleged purposes here, and you don't need someone like me, with my experience to tell you, because you got people that are, more qualified, more accoladed, more credited, like Daniel Cormier, world champion, Michael Chiesa. They were pointing it out themselves. So I don't think I need to go through any details except to refer to the details that I agreed with. And they pointed it out, not even just on the choke defense, but even the takedown attempt looked super suspect. He didn't run through, and it just did not look like a normal shot from him. And again, if you are going to hypothetically fix a fight, guys, I had a nightmare one time where it was a Tough Enough show back when they had the ring, when they had the ring ropes, and I had to fight Bigfoot Silva. I don't know why, but it felt real. So in my head, I'm like, how do I get out of this by taking the least damage, right? So what did I do? I just, the fight started, and I'm like, okay. And I had this in my head because it was so real. I'm like, I'm going to shoot, and I'm just going to like shoot for a single, and hope he finishes me, and I'll just curl up, or if he, and hopefully the ref stops it, or God forbid, hopefully he takes a choke, right? That would be the best way. That's the best way to throw a fight. Shoot and get choked out. That's the way it looks, folks. People mentioned Bob Sapp and stuff. He was the obvious king of it back in the day, where it was super obvious, right? But ideally, if you were to do it allegedly, folks, you would do it that way. I also agree with the chat that there was another finish that looked even more suspect that one of you guys may or may not have brought up. And if we were going to throw allegations, I would be much more comfortable throwing allegations at that fighter if you guys are referencing the same one. And
which
one
one?
last thing, Dumas with the
Dumas,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He was, whether it was end by submission or fight goes to round 2, that would have been a playable one with the way he was fighting and spazzing, because he was fighting more than he usually fights, but also wasn't really fighting. He was also avoiding the fight at the same time, for those of us who know. But I don't want to get into speculation city. I will say that I won't weigh into the speculation on a referee being examined. I feel like that's even more. We need more reporting on that. But somebody said in counter to that, it's a good thing we've got Big John coming back. And I know we've got a great relationship with Big John and MMA Junkie Radio. You guys just interviewed him. Excellent stuff. But I got to say, I don't know if I trust the guy that recently called in to sell out fighters' rights for the ABC Revision Act to be back in there protecting fighters when he's past his prime. That's all I'll say.
I don't even think Dumas should be fighting.
That too. He shouldn't be fighting.
He's had 2 fights since those serious charges in Florida. Yeah. The UFC used to distance themselves over a comment, over a joke, and now people can actually get arrested and do stuff. It was allegedly a home invasion. I think he was involved in. Like, that's crazy, man.
I will say this though, and it's worth noting. If you really want to, because sometimes there's so much stuff going on that we kind of lose track of these things. But if you really want to take a look at what the UFC really cares about and what they don't, you don't see them moving so quickly and so diligently and making taking hard stances on something as quick as they do the gambling stuff. Moreover, they do it more over any of the anti-doping stuff. Moreover, again, the legal stuff that you mentioned, they'll have no problem giving a fight to a fighter that is coming off a battery charge or has a crazy legal past or has something pending. And then we see on some other sports, even in combat sports, like, Gervonta Davis, it looks like he's going to get pulled from his Jake Paul fight in his boxing fight coming here on November 14th in Miami. The UFC really, this to them is the biggest no-no. So if you're a fighter and you're even thinking about this, like, you're out, you're gone. And as we've mentioned, there's reports that Dulgarian has already been released by the UFC, and there's not a conviction yet.
Yeah. Guys, just to clean the palate, give me a highlight from this event. Goes.
Man, I don't know if I'm cleaning the palate here, but Dumont and Vieira, I did not agree with that decision.
You don't agree with what?
I did not agree with that decision.
With who?
Dumont.
I thought you were back to Cedric Dumas. Okay.
Oh, no.
Norma Dumont, Kathleen Vera. All right. You had Vieira winning. 6 of the 7 outlets that I saw on including Matt Wells, did have Vieira. Danny Segura went the other way. Danny, we'll let you defend yourself last. Dan, how about you? Another highlight?
I'll just shout out Nascimento, getting
Yeah.
another win there in the Apex, kind of
Alano.
adding to his record. Flyweight, another flyweight contender there.
Yeah. And then Danny, go ahead. You got another highlight, and if you want to maybe defend your Dumont.
Look, I think 29-28 in favor of Vieira is fine. I think it was clear that Vieira won the first round and that Dumont won the third. And then the second, Vieira had more control, but I think the better shots were landed by Dumont. So that's how I get to the 29-28. But again, it would have gone the other way. I don't think it's crazy. It was a very close fight. So I'll say that. And in terms of my highlight, I want to shout out Charles Radke because this is a guy that kind of has made a name for himself of being a bit careless, a bit of a brawler. And I think we saw a real mature performance on Saturday, and we really saw some evolution. I'm not going to say this guy's a future champion or anything, but I really respect when guys go back to the drawing board and they do adjustments and they are introspective about their game, and he clearly addressed some of the issues that were going on in his game, and with that, you can go pretty far in this game. So curious to see where he goes next.
People, if you can hit that like button, we still got 15 minutes to go. Let's close strong. We do this every Monday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Help us let the show grow. Hit that like button, please. We really would appreciate it. Guys, let's move on here to the recent news. Back to eye pokes, strip clubs. Let's talk about it. Danny, you ever gotten your eye poked at Tootsie's in Miami? No, all jokes aside.
Never.
The Tom Aspinall controversy still breathes. They've been sharing updates. He still can't see, guys. Thoughts on how the Aspinall family is kind of handling all this? Thoughts on the MMA community reaction goes. What do you think here, man?
Look, dude, at the end of the day, I'm on Tom Aspinall's side. Could he have fought? Yeah. But should he have? No, it's unfair, especially with heavyweights that hit that hard. Like, who in their right mind would do something like that? But at this point, he's got to let it go. Him and his family need to stop putting all these updates and this and that. Like, it kind of makes it look more shady when you do that. Just let it go. Nobody's questioning you. I mean, some fools are. But I mean, this is a guy that's never been afraid in his entire career. All of a sudden, now we're saying this about him. The more and more they keep poking this and putting it out, no pun intended, the more and more it's not going to work in his favor. I think he needs to let it go.
Danny, your thoughts?
Yeah, the handling I don't think has been great by Aspinall, and I really liked what Bilal said. He had a comment on the situation. Out of all the comments from the fighters, I think his has been the best. I think most of them have actually been pretty terrible. Sorry, Aljamain, I respect him, but what he's been saying is crazy. But yeah, dude, just stop giving a fuck about what people say. Like, just move on. You got eye poked. You didn't lose. No contest. You did the right thing. You're at peace with your decision. Move on. Fans are gonna say a bunch of shit. It's a lost cause. It was a lost battle if you're gonna go against the trolls online. So yeah, just move on, recover, and let's book that rematch.
Yeah, and Aljo does need to stop. Every time he comes back, it's like, dude, you're the last one to come that should come in here. But go ahead, Dan. Your thoughts on the Aspinall family, giving updates. The dad saying he still can't see.
Yeah, man. I think after BJ George St. Pierre too, we all learned as a community that, like, no, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be like stating a fact, like the sky is blue. You never let your parents speak for you, right? Like it's just always bad. Even if they're saying something completely right and inarguable, we know how this space is. Oh, daddy talking for you? Oh, you're an excuses. I'm a soft snowflake. Like that's the world we live in, right, guys? So I'll just say that, like, I don't disagree with that, but I'll reiterate the point I said from before. I don't want to add to what the fans are already doing, which is A, blaming the fighters, and B, like, whether it's these things happening in real time because the ref doesn't want to put his big boy pants on and take responsibility. Neither does the doctor, neither does the corner. So everybody who gets sit with the bill, who gets paid the least, who gets exploited the most, who gets sit with all the imaginary unfair social bills as well, it is the fighters. They are clearly getting into the stick, folks. Can we maybe stop picking on them? Maybe stop kicking on them while they're down or while they're fouled? I don't know. Maybe we can, like, focus more on referees handling the sport protocols and our own attitudes, things that can actually affect change or change we can control, rather than, again, blaming the dude who just got fouled. I don't know. Maybe a crazy thought here, guys. Crazy thought.
Yeah. I think the Aspinall family is kind of just in this pickle because of those comments before. We might pivot to boxing. We're not re-signing. and the criticizing the money, which granted a lot of that is fair, I get it, but man, like handle that in another way, I think. And then I think there was a comment too, we're not fighting our teammate, we'd rather give up the belt. Come on. Like, after all this time, this is your time. You guys are just, I don't know, you need to prove, you need to like clear the path for you to take advantage of being champion. Had he defended, what was next? Instead,
you're mentioning all these things, and that was all before he defended his undisputed title just once.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I wasn't kidding, man. Gervonta Davis accused of attacking a woman in a strip club, Tootsie's in Miami. I know Danny's been there. Jake Paul fight is now in jeopardy. Should it be canceled, or who should replace Danny?
Yeah, this fight shouldn't go on, and we sometimes in the MMA world, we not MMA world, but just combat sports world, like this kind of stuff gets normalized because it happens so often. So at some point, you just kind of stop caring. But you shouldn't reward a fighter that does these kind of things with a giant fight and be putting them in these kinds of positions. So yeah, he should 100% get pulled. Now, this is not MMA. This is boxing. Usually fights get canceled or postponed, but there's no late replacement like in MMA where I'm just going to take a fight on 48 hours notice. So good luck trying to find someone. I don't know who that be. There's rumors about Nate Diaz. There's rumors about Franz Ngannou. I don't even know if that's possible, but let's see what happens. I'm not holding my breath on who will be replacing or if we will get a replacement. I think this thing could even get postponed. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be tough to find an appealing replacement in this short amount of time.
All right. Just because we're running a little behind, let's just skip to Gable Steveson. Sorry. He won at DBX4. Goes, is he legit? Is it too early to make that jump? Cormier came over kind of early after a decorated wrestling career. Brock Lesnar kind of was just ushered to the front as well. Big, powerful skill sets. What do you think?
But look what DC did early on in his career, right? Like I think after his 6th fight, we had an interview with him. He still wasn't even allowed to throw a kick. They wouldn't even let him do that. So I mean, yeah, it was a little bit quicker than others, but I think he still did it right. I think it was a good model. I'm not a fan of rushing this. I mean, the UFC is not a place to learn. So you either need to be ready for this now or take your time. I would rather take my time.
And he's young. DC came over in his early 30s. Stevenson still, I don't even think is 25. I would like a few more fights. DC won King of the Cage, and then he won a title out in Australia before he was even mixing it up at Strikeforce. And then when Strikeforce, remember, he was the alternate to that tournament. He came in and he was ready to shine, but he was at around his 10th fight around then. So yeah, I think a little bit more
big names, right?
A little bit more seasoning, I think, would work well. Guys, we have fights this weekend. Saturday night, it's Gabriel Bonfim against Randy Brown, headlining UFC Fight Night 264. As I say that, they're the headliners. Are we losing stars? Or are we just not giving credit as quickly as we used to some of these guys like Onama, Garcia, Bonfim, Brown? There's just doesn't seem to be a lot of excitement around some of these fight nights, right? What's your level of excitement, Dan Tom, for this fight night coming up?
I don't think we're losing stars so much as the UFC isn't building stars. By the way, I would swap out Tank Davis with the Ebola virus. I think that'd be a great opponent for Jake Paul. But yeah, I don't think they're losing stars as much as they're not building them anymore. Again, the people hate when I say this, but with the relentless UFC schedule, folks, it comes with a cost. Even if they did want to build, and we wanted to give credit to the overworked UFC production staff, how much can they really build, right? And then they're also doing old school matchmaking habits from back in the day we saw with DJ, where, like I said, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, finally a break from the middleweights and the rematches, right? But when they give us the lighter weight fights that all those hardcores want, they set them up to fail, right? Like DJ, when they give them on pay-per-views or put them on Fox nights, Fright nights, right? Either way, they were setting them up to fail. And they do the same thing with these flyweight main events. They throw them in the Apex, the featherweight main event last week, they throw it in the Apex. And even though welterweight isn't quite the lighter weight divisions that I love, it's still a division that, it's been a traditional one. And you could argue for that reason being underserved. So a good fight in the main event here with Bonfim and Brown, right? But again, they're not building the stars. They're not setting up beforehand. And then fiscally, they're not setting up these cards to do well, whether it's their location or just the card strength of them. And this one actually has some decent action fights sprinkled in throughout. But yeah, this is the UFC not building. This is the corporification. This is the end of the movie Casino, where the Vegas gets taken over by the corporations. They don't know your name anymore, right? That whole spiel. That's what we're living through, folks.
A 1 through 10, Dan, what would you rank the card?
5
on
with
paper.
the potential on a 5 with the potential to finish at a 7.5.
I like it. Danny Segura, how about you? Excitement level, what do you give it 1 through 10?
A 4.1 maybe. 3.9. Let's go 3.9 because I'm feeling a little cynical today.
Yeah.
Look, this is what happens, and I agree with what Dan Tom has said, but also want to highlight this is what happens when you have a monopoly.
Yeah.
When the UFC absorbs so much of the available real estate of MMA to the point that they are 98% of the industry or whatever the hell it is, they get turned into regional MMA. They get turned into what the promotions they've kicked out or the promotions that have gone out of business because they can't compete for attention because the UFC gathers all the attention. So this is regional MMA level. Like this is more or less what like an LFA card looks like, like a good one. So yeah, but like what are your other options? Like where are you else going to watch MMA? There's nothing going on. I mean, PFL is not putting on events right now, and they're not looking good. One has slowed down tremendously. So has Ryzen. Bellator is non-existent, and then all these other regional promotions, they're either gone or they're on their Fight Pass or something. So, yeah, not a great card. And but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the card could be great. I don't know. We'll see in terms of like the fighting itself. But on paper, in terms of like name value and having ranked level fighters, yeah, this card is not good, dude. Not at all.
Real quick, who do you like, Bonfim or Randy Brown?
I'm gonna go Bonfim.
All right, goes. Give me a 1 through 10 first.
I would say when you see the Amazon van go by, that's at least a 4.2. So I guess a 4.3. It's not that much more excitement, I guess.
You get excited for an Amazon van?
Hell yeah, man. That means something good is coming. I'm gonna unwrap something.
Well, you said go by. You mean at least when he's parked in front of your house, right?
Yeah, when he's parked in front of your house,
in front of neighbors. That's why like at a
4.2.
Huh?
A 4.2. I'm like, all right, what's this gonna be? What am I gonna unwrap? So fights have to get me more excited than that, but this ain't that much more exciting. So I'm gonna say 4.3, 4.4.
All right. And who do you like, Bonfim or Brown?
Bonfim.
All right. Dan's fluid thoughts will come later in the week. He always gives breakdowns of the fights, and he always has a written article. So look out for that. He includes prop plays as well. Let's just finish with this. Another highlight from this card, something that you're looking forward to. That's not at the top of the bill. Goes.
Sorry, could you repeat that again? Repeat. Sorry. Alec Hyder, Emil, and Jamal Emmers. I think that'll be fun. I don't know. It's going to improve a lot, but I think it'll be fun.
How about you, Dan Tom? What fight you looking forward to, or what's a piece of news from this card that you want to talk about?
I was looking forward to what should be the main card opener. Unfortunately, McMaynard is force feeding us middleweights for whatever reason. Like it's literally like next to heavyweight, it's the last vision you should open up a main card with, and he does it every time. It's annoying. But after that, you get Raoni Barcelos and my guy Ricky Simon Vato. Simon Barcelos, baby. Give it to me. Hook it to my veins.
Danny Segura, how about you?
Hey, and I'm gonna highlight an underdog here, and hopefully there's not another betting scandal or something. So please, FBI, don't fucking ruin my pick. But I'm gonna go here with Adrian Yanez versus Cristian Quiñones. This is a low-key good fight, man. Really good boxing. Cristian Quiñones is long, has a really good jab, comes out of a good gym. I think he might win this. I think he might take a decision here over Adrian Yanez. So watch out with that fight. That one looks like a low-key banger.
Giannis told us this past week on MMA Junkie that he relocated just for his camp to Dallas to isolate and focus. He's with Said Saif now. So let's see what happens, but he's definitely respectful of his opponent. This is a good question. Could Norma Dumont get a title shot? She's 4-0 at women's bantamweight. This comes from Joseph Boza. I'll address it real quick because we're basically done here. Just a couple seconds over. I think with Harrison and Nunes, seemingly it's going to happen, but not till 2026. Dumont kind of already answered the question in the post-fight. She just wants to stay busy because she already anticipates that she wouldn't get even any kind of a lick until somewhere in the summer. And she doesn't want that because remember, she was out about, 13 months since her last fight at the Sphere. So, and she won. She got 2 checks. There's an argument that she may not have, but she did call out Pennington, Pena, one of those two. Yeah, I think one of those two would definitely work, but we got to find out how things are shaking out with Nunes and Harrison, first of all. So, but she is interested, Joseph, in fighting very, very soon. I want to thank you all for tuning in to Spinning Back Clique. Again, we do this every Monday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Please hit the like button on the way out and kindly consider subscribing to the channel. We're at around 425,000 subscribers. We'd love to get to 500,000. It's all due to you guys and your support. You just hit subscribe. It's free. Let us do the rest. We cover the sport better than any other website on the planet. That's why we got 5 of them trophies, like the one that sits behind goes for best media source. All right, and with that, we're out of here. Go out and be a champion. We'll talk to you soon.